Grubhub once described the act of transporting food from restaurants as a crummy business. For years, the promise of the food delivery app was simple: a few taps on a screen and a hot meal arrives at your door. Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub didn't just change how we eat, they built a massive logistical empire. During the pandemic, these companies saw a record-breaking business as millions of homebound Americans turned to their smartphones for dinner. Their valuations skyrocketed. They gathered mountains of data to squeeze every bit of efficiency out of their routes. But beneath the growth, there was a fundamental flaw in the math. To understand why, you have to look at the mechanism of the business. These apps operate on a thin margin. They make money by charging restaurants a percentage of every order and charging consumers a service fee. But their biggest expense is the workforce, the drivers. Pierre Dimitri Gorkoti, the global chief of Uber's delivery business, noted that they have to optimize things to the cent just to survive. In fact, Grubhub described the act of transporting food from restaurants as a crummy business. This pressure to optimize creates a high-stakes environment for the people on the road. In the gig economy, the app is the boss, and the algorithm is the law. For drivers, this often means a race against the clock. When every second counts toward the next delivery, the pressure mounts. Some drivers describe this as a dehumanizing experience where they are forced to race their bikes or cars through red lights just to shave 2 minutes off a trip. It's a system built on high turnover and high demand, where the driver is often seen as a utility rather than a person. But as the pandemic waned, the fragility of this model became clear. The apps were hot, but they still weren't making money. The cost of the logistical undertaking, the fuel, the insurance, the payouts to drivers, was eating the profits. This systemic pressure led some to look for a way out. In Seattle, a delivery worker named Tony Ills hit a breaking point. After returning from a bout of illness, he found himself sitting in his car for 6 hours without a single order. The algorithm had gone silent. He realized that the middleman, the app, was the primary obstacle between him and a steady income. So, he decided to cut the middleman out entirely. He started at Tony Delivers. The mechanism was a radical simplification of the Uber Eats model. Instead of a complex app, he used a website and logos. Instead of an algorithm, he used a text message. Customers would order their own takeout from a restaurant, then text Tony to handle the delivery. He accepted cash, credit cards, Google Pay, and Apple Pay. He replaced the cold efficiency of the app with what he calls a person-to-person or P2P interaction. He used voice messages to give customers realistic wait times, relying on his own mental algorithm of the city's traffic rather than a server in a data center. For Tony, the shift wasn't just about money, though he found his earnings in the first month were roughly the same as they were on the big apps. It was about the empathy economy. He noticed a stark difference in human connection. On the big apps, he rarely saw customers run down the stairs to thank him. With his own business, it happened multiple times. He viewed the app-based gig work as a race that put drivers in unsafe positions, whereas his independent model prioritized the social fabric of the neighborhood. While individuals like Tony tried to localize, the giant platforms faced a different kind of crisis: the integrity of their workforce. By 2025, the scale of these platforms made them targets for fraud. In the UK, the government raised alarms about illegal working. Home Office ministers met with Uber Eats, Deliveroo, and Just Eat after claims that people were using the platforms to work illegally, including individuals staying in hotels used to house asylum seekers. The response from the giants was a technological crackdown. To protect their networks, the companies committed to a massive increase in facial verification checks and fraud detection technology. For Just Eat, this meant moving from monthly facial recognition checks to daily ones. The goal was to ensure that only registered, legal accounts could access the system. Ministers argued that illegal working undercuts honest businesses and drives down wages for legal workers, creating a race to the bottom in terms of working conditions. This brings the story of the delivery lifeline full circle. The apps began as a way to provide ultimate convenience, but the pursuit of profitability turned the drivers into cogs in a machine. When the machine became too expensive to run or too easy to exploit, the companies doubled down on surveillance and optimization. Meanwhile, on the fringes, a few drivers found that the only way to truly survive the crummy business of delivery was to stop being a gig worker and start being a neighbor.